Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the show that will not be named. I am your host, Brian, or to Game Prince, whatever you prefer. And today, I actually want to talk about something that's kind of, I guess you could say, bugging me, sort of. So, um, a while back, now this may sound weird, this may not sound weird. Basically, a while back, I was really into this thing. Essentially, you guys know, I don't know what your guys' opinion on ventriloquist dummies are and whatnot, but a while back, I used to be into ventriloquist dummies. Used to scare the fucking shit out of me, first of all, and I used to really be into this one story, um, about this apparently this real life, um, puppet, and its name was Charlie Wormwood. Now, mind you, Charlie Wormwood kind of looked like. Have you ever heard of like Edgar Bergen? If not, you got Google. You're a child of the internet. You could go up and look this shit up. Um, Edgar Bergen, a long ass time ago, had this puppet called Charlie McCarthy, and I'm not sure if it was during vaudeville or whatever, but during vaudeville, I wasn't sure if this was before or after Edgar Bergen's whole career or whatever the fuck. But there was this other uh, ventriloquist. His name was like Arthur Wainwright, I think. Not a very good stage name, I know, but it's like whatever. Uh, and Arthur Wainwright had a puppet. It's like the only puppet he ever used on vaudeville, and it was called Charlie Wormwood. And Charlie Wormwood, it was like a famous thing for like a short while, I guess. It's kind of like Michael Moorcock famous, where it's like if you ask some modern day people, they're like, "Who the fuck is Michael Moorcock?" It's like one of those things where he was like famous, but after time he faded and shit like that. So, anyways, the point that I was getting at was I used to do a lot of research in high school, like on the internet. If I was interested in something, I would search the living shit out of it. I would try to become a fucking expert on it. And this thing that I basically found out was Arthur Wainwright and his puppet Charlie Wormwood. Essentially, uh, Wainwright was a fucking nut or something to that effect, and he had apparently burned down some. No, that was it. He used to perform with Charlie Wormwood, which was his puppet, which, in my opinion, kind of looked like Charlie McCarthy, just like a creepier version of Charlie McCarthy, because I used to think Charlie McCarthy was fucking terrifying when I was younger. Anyways, Charlie Wormwood and Arthur Wainwright had this act for like fucking years or whatever, and there was this whole big fucking thing that went around, and like, I'm sure newspapers exist if it's fucking somewhere online. I can't find anything about it now. But there was this whole big thing where Arthur Wainwright, towards the end of his life, would just say like weird shit in like fucking interviews and shit. Like you know the average fucking the shit that would be in Goosebumps, like, "Oh, Charlie's actually alive. Charlie Wormwood's alive," and shit like that. And the whole stigma surrounding it was that it became like a meme, I guess, on Reddit or something like that, where Charlie Wormwood, the puppet, Arthur Wainwright's puppet, was like a tulpa, which is like, if you know, like Tibetan mysticism is like basically when you create in your mind, like, I guess, an imaginary friend to someone to like talk to and like interact with and yada yada, all that jazz. The whole shtick, I guess, with Arthur Wainwright was that when he had his ventriloquist dummy, Charlie Wormwood, uh, his tulpa, like, he would make a tulpa in his mind, and he genuinely like fucking believed that Charlie Wormwood was like alive, that the tulpa within his mind went into, like, became a soul or something to that fucking effect, and went into his ventriloquist dummy. And then, of course, obviously, the dude committed a bunch of like murders and shit, and everyone thinks that, anytime he was blamed or shit like that offhandedly, he'd be like, "It was Charlie McCarthy." Not Charlie McCarthy. It was Charlie Wormwood. It was Charlie Wormwood. And shit like that. But, it's weird, though, because, like, I've looked it up, and I can't find anything about him anywhere. And I used to, like, see shit about him online. Like, I used to look it up, and I used to find it all the time. basically the whole story, like the big mysterious thing, was that Charlie Wormwood and Arthur Wainwright had some kind of fucking. They had the vaudeville act, and then they moved to mainstream or something like that. I don't know. I think they went to Los Angeles once or twice, but they were kind of around in like the 70s ish when Arthur got like much older. And what ended up happening was they were in a theater in, I think, Chicago or New York or fucking somewhere. It might have been Chicago, and it burned down. Like after the show was over, it just burned the fuck down, and Arthur died. And after he died, there wasn't any journal found describing anything like you always hear in these fucking stories. It was just like Arthur's family. And they just always explain, like, they kind of got rid of, I guess, they kept the rights to, like, the Charlie Wormwood puppet, I guess for, like, commercial reasons or whatever the fuck. So the family kept the rights to it, but they didn't keep the puppet around. They gave the puppet to somebody, or it disappeared, or was given to someone. I don't fucking know. I don't think it just was destroyed in the fire, because I did hear about it popping up like years later. But essentially, the Charlie Wormwood puppet franchise, I guess, however small it was, ended up being picked up in like the 90s. There was, I forget which company it was. I don't know if it's like Hasbro or Mattel or somebody like picked it up, and they were gonna start making Charlie Wormwood like ventriloquist dummies. Like they were trying to relaunch the whole ventriloquist dummy scene, I guess. I don't know what the fuck. But it ended up not going over well, obviously, because there were like all these incidences at the factory with like, oh, this person got their arm fucking caught in a gear while they were changing the machine, or this person climbed a fucking ladder and they weren't supposed to, and they fell off and broke their fucking like rib cage or something like that. And all these accidents kept happening in the fucking factory where they were supposed to be manufacturing the Charlie Wormwood puppets. And then it ended up just like getting closed down for like no fucking reason, and there was like no explanation given anywhere as to what it was. But all of that, like, it was just, Charlie Wormwood and Arthur Wainwright were just like this big thing in vaudeville. They were kind of famous in the 50s, 60s, sort of, kind of. And then, like years and decades or whatever after Arthur died, they tried to bring Charlie back in the 90s, and it just went down in like a bombshell. And mind you, all throughout this fucking thing, the stigma surrounding the Charlie Wormwood puppet was that, oh, he's alive, he's this, he's that, blah, 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 blah. And like bad luck apparently surrounds him. Whatever. But like all of that I could like forgive. It's like not a big deal. What freaks me the fuck out was that I used to research that shit in school all the time. I used to read about it. It wasn't like an uncommon story to hear about. But the thing that wigs me out is that I've done like research and I tried to look it up now, and I can't find fucking anything about Charlie Wormwood or Arthur Wainwright. It's legitimately, it's kind of freaky. It's like they don't fucking exist anymore, which is kind of weird. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. It's just kind of, it wigs me out sometimes. Because I'm like, I know this thing existed. I know they did. I used to read about them all the fucking time. There were articles, interviews about this shit. Fucking, what was it? Arthur was buried at a fucking cemetery in like Brooklyn. There was just a whole bunch of shit about it, and like one of the things I literally distinctly remember is that Charlie Wormwood was just fucking creepy. Like he was one of those like really, I mean, genuinely, I think all dolls are kind of creepy, but the whole thing that obviously got me into it was the fact that like Arthur's like, oh my god, my dummy's alive, blah blah blah. He says things that I don't say, blah blah blah. All the regular demonic possessed doll shit. But I always thought that, like, the concept behind it was interesting. That he's like, oh, it was a tulpa in my mind, and my mind was too powerful, and I manifested a soul inside the doll, and now it's alive, and yada, yada, yada. I always thought that concept was cool. I always thought that was interesting. And then I go online all these years later to try to look it up, and there's fucking nothing on it. So I just thought that was weird. But I was just wondering, you guys, you comment in the comment section below. Have you ever heard of Charlie Wormwood and Arthur Wainwright, the ventriloquist? I'm curious. I would like to know. Try to prove that I'm not fucking crazy. So, yeah, that's about going to do it for this video. Thank you for joining me, and adios.